it's Sonia, your health promotion coordinator, and we're here today to make a whole roasted chicken. So I personally love making whole roasted chickens just because you can have it for multiple meals. You can make a lot of different dishes out of it. So one thing you'll notice when I start making mine, I don't do a whole lot of seasoning. I kind of just throw it in the oven and cook it, because then the following day I like to have it with salad. For example, the pasta salad that I made last week, it's nice to just throw on top of there if you don't have another meat. You can also have it with regular salad on top of your greens. You can make your own homemade chicken salad with it. It's really versatile. You can have it with roasted veggies, kind of however you choose to make it, or however you choose to have it, you can. So I'm gonna go ahead and take you through our ingredients. They're really simple and things that everyone just has or tends to have lying around their house. Okay, so the main attraction, our whole chicken. As you can see, I have it sitting in a bowl, and that's so that as it was defrosting, in case any juices leaked out, we didn't have a mess in our fridge, and it didn't cross-contaminate with any of the fresh produce that I keep in there, like fruits or berries, for example, that I would eat without cooking. One thing to note, this says it's a whole body chicken with the giblets in it. So please make sure that you take those out, and I'll kind of show it to you when I'm actually prepping it. You don't want to cook those. They kind of tend to be wrapped in some form of parchment paper anyway. So I think that would probably end up starting a fire if you were to cook that in with it. So make sure that you do remove those, especially if it says that it's right there. If not, you can just take a quick peek to make sure that it's empty. All right, then right in the pan with it, I will be throwing in some carrots. Ideally, if you have like fresh carrots in the whole bunch that you have to peel and cut on your own, that would be great. I didn't have those. I had frozen carrots, and these are really cheap. They're like less than 99 cents at Target. So I always keep some in my freezer, and I'm just choosing to use these today. I have 2 bags just because they are crinkle cut, so I'll be able to spread them out around the chicken. All right, then you can see my bowl here. I have a ton of potatoes. I had a lot and I needed to get rid of them. I will be also roasting these potatoes, but I am going to roast them in a separate pan just because I'm gonna leave the carrots and the chicken together. The potatoes, I'm using kind of a combination. I have red potatoes, as you can see. So with those, it was nice. I was just able to wash them and pre-chop them for you for this video. But then further down in the bottom, I really have to dig to find one. We have just regular russet potatoes, and those I went ahead and peeled and then chopped prior to the video just because that takes a while, but I saved one to show you. Okay, so our seasoning is gonna be pretty simple. For the chicken, I'm really just gonna put a little bit of salt and pepper on it. Again, as I mentioned, I don't wanna do a whole lot of seasoning, just so that way, if I do mix it in with salad or another set of roasted vegetables, it'll absorb the flavor from that marinade. But for the potatoes, I'm gonna use extra virgin olive oil. Anyone that knows me knows that I love my EVOO, so I'll be using that. And then I'll also be using a little bit of apple cider vinegar. If you have lemon or limes, you can juice one of those and use that. And then I'll also be using just a dash of salt, some thyme, some rosemary. Rosemary and potatoes go really well together. And then oregano and pepper. Okay, so before we get started, I'm gonna go ahead and wash my hands. This is good practice whenever you're handling food, whether you're preparing it or eating it. Obviously, we're in the middle of COVID, and so it's even more important to wash your hands now. But this is just a good practice to get into whether or not we're in the middle of a pandemic. When you are washing your hands, make sure that you get around your wrists, in between your fingers, and underneath your fingernails. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here. So now that we washed our hands, we're gonna wanna preheat our oven to 350 degrees, so press start. For those of you that have tuned into my other videos, you know that the oven always finishes preheating before I'm actually done prepping. So you'll probably hear the beep letting you know that it's done. Okay, so to start off, I'm actually gonna go ahead and prep the potatoes just because I wanna have the marinade kind of going, or I call it a marinade, but I'm gonna kind of make it in an olive oil vinaigrette option, just to have it sit a little bit so that it can really absorb the flavors. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I peel my potato and then how I just chop it up. Okay, so you're gonna have a nice view of this lovely North Dakota shirt. but I will show you how I peeled my russet potatoes. And this one's actually really cute. It looks like a little heart. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start off by peeling it. Again, as I mentioned last week in my pasta salad recipe, you always wanna peel away from you. So that way, if anything were to happen, you just, I guess basically the vegetable peeler wouldn't come towards you, and it will help prevent injury. If you have red potatoes like I have in the bowl, those you can just wash and you don't have to peel them, just because the skin is thin enough that you can eat it. One thing to note about these, after I peeled all of the russet potatoes, I went ahead and also rinsed them, just because obviously potatoes grow in the ground. They are high in starch, but that's actually not a bad thing. But the dirt tends to remain on the peel. You can kind of see it. I mean, it's pretty dirty looking. So I wanted to remove any dirt that might have gotten on the actual potato from when the peeler hits the skin and then hits the edible part. Because this potato is like nice and cute and looks like a little heart, it's a little more difficult to actually peel. So this might take a little bit. All right, potatoes have kind of a bad rap, I guess, with all these different fad diets that are out there. People are like, oh, carbs are bad for you. Potatoes are pretty high in carbohydrates, but they're also high in things like potassium, which obviously our body needs. And carbs in general just aren't bad for you. Carbs are what give our body energy to get through the day. If you didn't have carbohydrates in your diet, you'd probably be very sluggish. And for anyone that thinks that they're not getting carbohydrates, well, newsflash, most of your fruits tend to have carbohydrates. So it's really, are you going to stop eating fruit? No. So potatoes are not bad for you. It's just really you want to eat them in moderation, just as you would eat anything. All right, as you can see me digging in here, the top of the vegetable peeler, if you ever have like minor bruises on your potato, or if the potato has eyes, you can just kind of dig those out with this little part of your vegetable peeler. All right. And they don't have to look super pretty because you're gonna end up cutting it anyway. All right, so I will come back, as I mentioned, after you finish peeling your potatoes, which is what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna go ahead and just run it under some water to kind of rinse off any dirt. Because you can see I'm getting dirt on the white part, which is what we end up eating. All right, so I'll be back when I'm ready to cut it. So we're back, and I rinsed the potato off, so there's no dirt. I also rinsed off my cutting board because there was a little bit of dirt on it, so I rinsed it off just so that way that would be clean too. All right, and I'm just gonna kind of start off by going down in half this way, and then I'll have that again, and then, so I guess I'm eighthing it because half, yeah, an eighth. And then for any of the pieces that might seem a little big, I just have them again, and I'm gonna put them in my bowl. You can choose to use sweet potatoes too. These are the potatoes I had in my house, so those are the potatoes I'm using. Okay, so now that our potatoes are all in the bowl, I'm gonna go ahead and make the olive oil and vinegar, like marinade vinaigrette. So I'm gonna start off by pouring in 1/4 cup of olive oil in here. And now my measuring cup starts at 1/2 cup, so I'm gonna have to guesstimate kind of halfway. This does not have to be an exact science, just, you know, if you pour in a little more, that's not a big deal. All right, and then I do not have lemons or limes, so I'm using apple cider vinegar, and I am going to pour in about 1/4 cup of that. And so that'll bring me up to 1/2 cup here. Okay. All right, so that's all set in there. And now we're gonna begin adding in our seasoning. So I'm using a 1/4 teaspoon of oregano, and I'm just gonna go ahead and add that in. And with seasonings, it's just important to remember that a little does go a long way, so you don't need a whole lot. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of rosemary. Put that in there. If you want, so some people do choose to just use their whole roasted chicken kind of for everything. You can go ahead and like really season it. Okay. This is only about a 1/4 teaspoon of thyme. I'm running out of time. Ha, pun. Okay. I'm trying to get it all out here. We need just a little more. All right. That was it. We're all out of time. But I'm putting the thyme in. And then there's the oven. I'm just going to go ahead and put in a dash of sea salt. If you have already kind of ground up sea salt, you can go ahead and use about a 1/4 teaspoon of that too. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of ground pepper. But with the sea salt is a little more potent, or it's like stronger in flavor. So a little goes a long way, and the dash will be just fine. And once again, I am getting my arm workout here from grinding up my pepper. For anyone that's been following along, I've had this ground pepper since we started making these videos, and it doesn't seem to want to run out. So here we are. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and whisk this all together. All right, and so now I'm just whisking it all up, get everything fully incorporated. And if you like different seasonings, you can choose to, you can make the potatoes kind of Southwest style, so use more of a Tex-Mex seasoning. I just am kind of keeping it simple, more Mediterranean type flavors. All right, and once it's all whisked, we're gonna bring our bowl over here. So look at all those potatoes. And we're just gonna pour it over and toss it and kind of let it sit a little bit before we put them in the oven. You wanna get all your seasonings out here. All right. And then nothing super fancy, you just want to make sure it's all incorporated. And as it sits, it'll kind of absorb some of the flavor too. Potatoes, so for anyone from the Midwest, potatoes are a great item to add to your meal just because they're abundant, they grow here, and so you can get them pretty cheap at the grocery store. Sometimes people even be like, yeah, I know someone that's growing them and I get them that way. And they're just really easy and affordable to incorporate into your diet or your food. This whole meal actually was really affordable. The most expensive thing that I bought was the whole chicken. But even then, it'll last you close to a week, so probably around like that 5-day mark. And the nice thing with that is the entire meal comes out to being around like $3 max. And really that's because I bought a whole chicken, and the chicken is actually free range. So, all right, so now that this is all mixed in, I'm gonna let it sit before we put it in the oven. Okay, so it's time to finally begin prepping our whole chicken here. And so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm using this Le Creuset dish to cook it in, but if you have any other oven safe pan that's big enough to hold your chicken, feel free to use that. I've even seen some people make it on like a cookie sheet flat. I have not attempted that yet, so I just tend to use this. It cleans up really easily and it tends to have the chicken cook really nicely. so here's a close-up view. We have our chicken, and in order to open it, I'm just gonna take my scissors. One thing to remember, if you are using kitchen shears, make sure that they can come apart so that way you can actually separate them and wash them, and it dries better, and you don't end up with like food particles stuck basically in this part of the knife, and it doesn't rust on you. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it back together if I can here. All right, there we go. I put it back together. So I'm just gonna cut open the top of the chicken. So the nice thing about a whole chicken is you can please a lot of different people. For example, if you have someone in your family that's more of a white meat fan, obviously they'll have the chicken breast. If you have a dark meat fan, you can have the thighs. All right, so we're just gonna take it out of the packaging. This is a bigger bird than I expected. Oh boy, okay. And then I'm gonna go ahead and place it in my pan. And so this is like the perfect size. And then to look for, so this is where the giblets would be wrapped. And you're just gonna pull those out, and I always have another bowl kind of waiting for me to place them in right there. Some people cook with the giblets. I recommend not eating the neck, and it's really up to you. I don't, I just get rid of them. So now the inside of the chicken, if pieces won't fall in, this is what the inside of the chicken looks like. Woo! All right, so I am gonna go ahead and wash my hands because obviously I've touched raw meat, and I will get back to you. Placing the chicken down, you wanna make sure that the legs are tucked underneath as they are here, and the wings are on top, so that way it kind of lays flat. All right, so now, even though I just washed my hands, I am going to pour just a little bit of olive oil on top of the chicken, and using my hands, I'm just gonna spread it around. This will allow me to then like put the salt and pepper on it and have it stick to it. And obviously some of the olive oil is gonna kind of fall on the bottom, and so I then just move the chicken around to kind of get it fully coated. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and wash my hands again because I do not wanna get a foodborne illness such as salmonella from touching raw chicken. All right, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and put the pepper on. In total, I probably will end up using about a teaspoon worth of pepper, but again, I have the peppercorns in the grinder, so we're just guesstimating it here. Again, if you use a little more seasoning on this, that's fine. So I mentioned that I am doing kind of a bare bones seasoning just because I then like to put my chicken and other items like salad and stuff, and I'd rather have it absorb the flavor of my dressing. But some people even kind of stuff in between the skin and the actual meat, and they'll stuff things like basil or thyme. Some people put bay leaves in there. Kind of whatever seasoning you want to use, you can go ahead and use it and make it your own, really. Mine's just staying pretty simple. Oh, getting an arm workout in here. All right, and then I am going to go ahead and here I'm only gonna use about a ½ teaspoon of salt. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put our carrots in there. These are frozen, so I might need to break them up a little. And I'm just gonna spread them out around the chicken. So I'll show you what that looks like once I'm done. You can use other vegetables of your choice if you'd like. For example, some people put onions in with their chicken. I like carrots. I don't know, roasted carrots. I'm not a big fan of cooked carrots, if we're gonna be completely honest, but roasted carrots I can tolerate, and they kind of absorb the flavor of the chicken as well. So I'm just gonna stick these around it. They're kind of cold, which makes sense. They've been in the freezer. All right, so carrots are actually very rich in beta carotene, which is what gives them that nice yellow, or not yellow, whoa, that nice orange color. And beta carotene is actually really good for eye health. All right. If you get some ice chips in here too from because the carrots are frozen, that's completely fine. It won't affect the cooking process. Okay, so this is what our chicken looks like with the carrots around it. Obviously one side got a few more carrots than the other, but that's okay. And then I'm going to show you a trick that I use to help keep the chicken moist and tender when it's cooking. So I am going to take a piece of parchment paper, and I just kind of make sure that it fits. I get the ones that are pre-cut. If not, you can cut it on your own. And so I'll just lay that flat really quick before putting it on. And then I'm going to get a piece of aluminum that I will kind of double up with the parchment paper. Push that out of the way. All right, so we'll put the aluminum down, and then I'll lay the parchment paper on top of it. And I'll bring my pan right back over here, and I'm just gonna cover it. And this will help keep the moisture intact, which will help you won't have dried out chicken as you're eating it, because dried out chicken can be a little much. And then sometimes I feel like you might want to put another layer on this way to kind of crisscross it. All right, so I'm gonna cook this for about an hour and 15 minutes. At that hour mark, I am going to go ahead and check on it and probably take off the aluminum foil. And then that'll allow it for the last 15 minutes to cook and really get that golden color that you see with like turkey, with a whole turkey or with a whole chicken. If you have a meat thermometer at home, you can go ahead and stick it in like the thickest part of the chicken, or in a few different places to test it out. But the internal temperature should be 165 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so I'll take you over the oven. See, we preheated. You probably heard it preheating earlier. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and stick the chicken in the oven. So I left room so that way I can put my other pan over to the side with the potatoes. Okay, so our potatoes are kind of done marinating a little bit in the olive oil or in the vinaigrette that we made. So I'm just gonna go ahead. I have another Le Creuset dish. This one's more rectangular in shape. Again, you can use any oven-safe pan, but I'm just gonna take the potatoes, and I've already put some in here. I'm just gonna transfer them in here, and these are really small. Like you can see, I cut them finely. That one's probably a bigger piece than what's the norm. Like here, that's the size. So they will cook. You can layer them a little bit if you need to. I might have to make this in some batches, but all right. So now that I have my Le Creuset full of potatoes, I repeated the process with my parchment paper. I cut it to fit perfectly around that pan, and then I'm gonna top that with some aluminum foil and wrap that around my dish. The nice thing with the potatoes is that the aluminum foil goes around it nicely. And then I'm gonna cook these for 30 to 45 minutes. It really depends on your stove. I will probably cook them for 45. I'll cook them for 30 with the oven or with the aluminum on it. and then I'll take it off at that 30-minute mark and cook them for about another 15 minutes. You could do anywhere from 10 to 15 without the aluminum on, so that way they get that nice like golden brown crispy like texture. Okay, so our potatoes are also in the oven over there on our right, and there's our chicken. It's cooking. I'm gonna go ahead and set a timer, and I'll see you back here when I'm ready to uncover the potatoes. Okay, so it's been 30 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and check on our potatoes and take them out of the oven. There they are. Before I take them out, I want to emphasize whenever you're touching anything hot off the oven, you want to make sure you have your oven mitt on, or a pot holder, just so that way you aren't touching your bare hands on it, because it could cause serious harm. You don't want to get burned. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and I still kind of use the oven mitt. Woo! We uncovered them. So there are the potatoes. And now I'm gonna go ahead and place these back in the oven with my oven mitts on, so that way they can get that nice golden crispy brown texture or color. Now that they're in the oven uncovered, I'll cook them for another 15 minutes. So I will actually see you shortly so that we can uncover the chicken, but I'll see you in 15 minutes when the potatoes are done. It's time to uncover our chicken. Ooh, look at that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stick this back in the oven and cook it for another 15 minutes. Potatoes are out of the oven. You can see they roasted nicely. And now we're just waiting for the chicken to come out. So we have our chicken and our carrots there out of the oven. See how the skin's a nice golden brown. And then we have our potatoes. I am gonna go ahead and let this cool. I won't show you what it's like to clean the chicken. It's pretty straightforward to clean it, but I am going to let it cool. I recommend that you let it cool for at least 30 minutes before you start cleaning it. Just that way you won't burn your hands. But this is what our final product looks like. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed cooking with me and that you get to make your own roasted chicken. The meal really is versatile. You can do whatever you want with it, and it lasts for a really long time, so I recommend giving it a shot. Let us know how you make it. Do you use chicken or do you use turkey? Do you use different seasonings? As I mentioned earlier, you could use a Tex-Mex style seasoning. However you make it your own, and be sure to tag us at UND Wellness. See you next time. Bye.